On TV, singing in the rain looks like a lot of fun. To those behind the scenes, it was hell. All Donald O'Connor had to do to deal with Gene Kelly's request was smoke 4 packs every day. She yelled at him in front of everyone. Kelly gave O'Connor 1 day to heal after his badly hurt body finally fell over. The studio doctor told them not to go on. It didn't bother Kelly. This was the bad side of the movie show that everyone loved that no one talked about. He was born on August 23, 1912 in a tough Pittsburgh area for working-class people. His Irish-American family had 5 kids and he was the 3rd child. James, his father, sold phonographs and was on the road a lot. Harriet, his mother, raised the children while James worked. She liked music, pushed her kids to be interested in the arts. Gene's mom signed him and his brother up for dance classes when they were 8 years old. It made him mad. Other boys picked fights with him and called him names. Gene quit dancing for a while and didn't start again until he was 15. Not to worry, his mom kept trying. She put together a family entertainment group called the 5 Kellys. They did shows at churches, hospitals, and community events. Gene felt stuck though. He didn't like dancing, he liked sports. Still, that inner struggle between being tough and being artistic would later define his whole style. Gene was a great athlete by the time he was in high school. He did gymnastics, football, tennis, and track. He even wanted to play shortstop for the Pittsburgh Pirates. In fact, he finished 3 years early at age 16 and was interested in sports, not show business. But hockey was his favorite sport. Gene could work out in the backyard because his dad would freeze it. By the time he was 15, he was coaching a semi-pro hockey team. People started to notice something odd about him when he started acting in school plays. He gave the stage real power. Girls who had overlooked him before now looked up to him. Gene felt better about himself after getting that attention. He began to think that he might be able to do more than just play sports. Then there was the 1929 crash. We were all hurt by the Great Depression. His dad lost his job. There was no more money. Gene was about to start his first year of college at Penn State to study writing when he had to drop out to help his family. He worked at every job he could discover. Work as a soda jerk, a builder, a ditch digger, or even a dance gig. Then everything changed. It wasn't just a hobby anymore. Dance was a way to stay alive. After a break, he went back to the University of Pittsburgh to study economics and finished in 1933. He even tried going to law school, but he knew that wasn't the right path for him. The hard times during the Great Depression were rough, but they made him work harder. Gene began working non-stop, teaching dance during the day and performing at night. He and his 13-year-old brother Fred started entering talent shows all over Pittsburgh. They came up with creative ways to get the prize money. They began to make up their own steps. They paid close attention to theater dancers, copied what they liked, and then made it better. They added tough, low-to-the-ground moves that were sharp and strong. It was a strong dance. Gene and Fred were making something new, but they didn't know it. The Gene Kelly Studio of Dance was opened by the Kelly family in Squirrel Hill in 1932. Gene, who was only 20, became the main teacher. He put everything he had into it. His students said he was always active. He did more than teach, he drove people. Every hour Gene spent in that room helped him form his ideas. There was more to Gene Kelly than just dancing. He wanted to change the way people thought about dance. In December 1940, he got a big break. He played the lead in the Broadway show Pal Joey when he was 28 years old. The part wasn't safe or cute. He played a performer in a bar who lied to get ahead. But he got by. Back then, it was a big deal that the show ran 374 times. People thought he was brave and new. Gene didn't follow the rules of the dance. He told reporters, "I make what the music and drama demand." Being that way made him stand out. He did his job perfectly. Van Johnson, his co-star, once found him practicing by himself at midnight after working 16 hours. Gene was still dancing under the one light that was on. Hollywood took notice. Well-known director David O. Selznick gave him a movie deal in October 1941. Gene wasn't in a hurry to leave Broadway though. He said he would finish Pal Joey first. It was that important to him to be on stage. But it was clear that he was about to move from the stage to the big screen. In 1942, he got his first movie part. Gene's deal was split in half and sold to MGM because Selznick didn't know what to do with Gene. Music from World War I was shown in the movie For Me and My Gal. Star of the show was Judy Garland. She saw her friend Joey and asked for Gene by name. But Gene had a hard time with the change. He later said that he didn't like how he looked in the movie. He said it was horrible to see himself 20 times bigger. Film needed moves that were smaller and tighter. He wasn't used to the big Broadway style. His style was still unique. When Fred Astaire danced, he looked like he was made of silk. Gene wore blue jeans and danced like it was a sport. People liked him because he was strong and had attitude. It worked well for me and my girlfriend. MGM bought the other part of his deal. Gene Kelly showed that men didn't have to be delicate when they danced in just one movie. It might be rough, cool, and real. In 1942, that event changed his life and the way Hollywood saw dance. Gene began to change the way dance looked in a big way. He didn't want it to feel fancy or far away. It had to seem real to him. It was called Dance for the Common Man. He mixed ballet with jazz, modern dance, tap, and even the jitterbug. There were many people who influenced him. But George M. Cohan stood out. Gene said that he had the same Irish energy as Cohan, always cocky on his toes and ready to fight. He thought that kind of spirit made men who danced strong, not weak. He knew that some boys didn't want to dance. He had been through that as a child in Pittsburgh. Boys who danced were thought to be less strong, or girls who did it. Gene put an end to that idea. He moved like a sports star. He danced like a boxer. His style had its own language by the middle of the 1940s. It said you don't have to wear tails to move with power. Gene didn't just want to act though, he also wanted to be in charge. In 1943's Thousands Cheer, he led the dancers with a mop. This was his first try at choreography. It wasn't as silly as it sounds. This idea was clever, unique, and worked. CoverGirl, which came out in 1944, was his big break. Columbia Pictures took him on loan from MGM and let him go. He made something crazy with it. In one scene, he danced with a picture of himself. No one had ever done it before. Gene was no longer just moving. Mirrors, split screens, and even animation were some of the film tricks he used to show what dance could do on camera. No longer was it just about steps. Moving around to tell a story was the point. By 1949, MGM had faith in him enough to let him help direct On the Town. It was the first time he wasn't just staring, he was in charge. That made everything different. He stopped making dances just for himself. He was in charge of whole groups. He had a group. Gene Coyne, Stanley Donen, Carol Henney, and Alex Romero are a few examples. They put together whole stories around dance. Not dance just for fun, but dance as a part of the story. Gene thought that dance scenes should not be a part of movies. The dancing should move the story along instead. His goal became that thought. On the other hand, Donald O'Connor was born in Chicago, Illinois, on August 28, 1925. His birth marked the 200th at St. Elizabeth Hospital. They were already very busy in show business. John Chuck O'Connor was his father and was a strong man and acrobat in a show. He learned how to ride a horse without a saddle from his mother, Effie Irene. They were in a comedy show together called The O'Connor Family, Royal Family of Comedy. They had been on so many trips that they couldn't remember where or when Donald was born. He was there almost from the beginning. He was dancing on stage when he was only 13 months old. Since he couldn't walk yet, they would hold him up by the back of his neck and play music. He would then kick to the beat. He laughed later that any kid could do that for free. But he got paid to do it. There were 8 children in the family, but only 4 of them lived to adulthood. Jack, Billy, and Arlene, his older brothers, were also in on it. But life wasn't all fun and show business. Early on, tragedy hit hard. Before a Hartford, Connecticut theater in 1927, Donald and his sister Arlene were trying to cross the street. Donald was only 2 years old at the time. A car came quickly. Arlene, who was only 7 years old, died right there. Donald made it. A few weeks after that, their dad had a heart attack while playing on stage in Brockton, Massachusetts. There have been 2 deaths in the past few weeks. It hurt their mom. After that, she became very protective of Donald. He couldn't cross the street by himself until he was 13. She kept a close eye on him, even when he wasn't acting. Their family had lost 3 other babies before this one. Their early life was shaped by both stage lights and sadness because they had been through so much pain. But the show had to go on. Donald didn't go to school like other kids did. He first took classes by mail and then went to Hollywood professional school. The stage was his real school though. He could sing, dance, and play instruments before he could read music. He could stand up and then sing and then sing. In their show, the O'Connor family sang, danced, did circus tricks, and made people laugh. Donald knew how to use rhythm and timing like a pro by the time he was 4 years old. He said he didn't really start singing until he was 2 years old, which he thought was late. His life was always on the go. One place after another, one show after another. He became very good because he trained all the time. After that came Hollywood. Trump was 11 years old when he and his brothers got small parts in a Warner Brothers movie called Melody for Two. The dance he did was unique. It wasn't a big part, but it was enough to stand out. After a year, Paramount hired him. They gave him $250 a week when he was 12 years old. That's around $5,000 a week now. He had a big part in Sing You Sinners, 1938, where he played Bing Crosby's younger brother. His skills and charm made people notice him. Soon he was in bigger movies with stars like Gary Cooper. In movies like Men with Wings and Bojest, 1939. He was even Huck Finn in Tom Sawyer, Detective. He got off to a great start at Paramount, but by 1941 he was ready for more. He got a deal with Universal Pictures when he was 16. That's when things changed. Universe-wide had a plan. Teen stars Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland worked for MGM. Their movies were always packed. In order to make their own version, Universal put Donald together with Peggy Ryan. She was born into a family that did theater. She was born in 1924 and her blood beat to a beat. What's Cookin' 1942 was their first movie together. It worked. People loved them. They made 7 movies with music in just 2 years. There is a lot of excitement in Private Buckaroo, Give Out, Sisters, Get Hep to Love, and Top Man. People dance quickly, make crazy faces, and there is action all the time. It was a great way to get away during the war. They had a big hit with Mr. Big 1943. It started out as a low-budget B-movie, but Universal saw how good it could be. They added an extra $50,000 to improve the singing scenes. That's about $850,000 now. It worked to improve. After that, all of Donald's movies at Universal were A-grade movies with bigger budgets. He was no longer just a young star. He had the makings of a main man. When he was at MGM in 1952, Arthur Freed had a great plan. His plan was to make a show with old songs that he and Nazio Herb Brown had written in the 1920s and 1930s. At that time, movies were changing from silence to sound, and those songs were written during that time. That's why Betty Comden and Adolph Green, who wrote the script, chose that time period for the movie. They were given almost complete freedom by Freed. He only told them to write a movie and use as many of these songs as they could. Freed hired Stanley Donen as the director. Donen had worked with Gene Kelly a lot. It was clear that Kelly should play the major role of Don Lockwood when he became a song and dance man. Donen pushed hard for Donald O'Connor to play Cosmo Brown, which kept him from having to work on the silly Francis the Talking Mule movies at Universal. Judy Reynolds, who was 19 years old, was cast as Kathy Selden. She was pretty, had a nice voice, and was full of energy, but she had never danced before. It cost a lot to see the show. Making it cost $2,540,800, which is $665,000. More than planned. The outfits alone cost $157,000, but they were worth it. When it came out in April 1952, it made $7.7 million at the box office. That was a huge success. Gene Kelly did more than just star in the movie. It was also co-directed and performed by him and Stanley Donen. He had a lot of power on set because of that. Kelly's exciting flowing dance moves in CoverGirl in 1944 had already changed the music world. He was ready to do even more now. Kelly paid attention to the dance. Donen was in charge of the musical and emotional scenes behind the camera, but they didn't work well together. Donen later made a joke that co-direct really meant fight. By the end, they could barely work together because things were so tense. Kelly was very picky about things. He pushed everyone but Debbie Reynolds the most. In the end, she said that he made her cry a lot. And when she got too angry, Kelly would use Donald O'Connor as a subject to vent his anger. He had his own problems, Donald O'Connor. He joined his family's theater act when he was only 13 months old. He learned to dance on stage, not in a school. Kelly had studied dance for years, but O'Connor had to learn everything the hard way. He had a hard time remembering dance steps and always felt like he was behind. He said, "I've never had any formal training. Habits were hard for me to pick up. I had to learn to dance for real when I was 15. He also thought there was a big change in style. He and other vaudeville dancers danced from the waist down. For movie shows, the whole body had to move. He had to learn how to dance like a pro. His sports skills were truly impressive. Even though not many people could beat him, the practices were still very hard. Things got harder when I tried to copy Kelly's exact style. On April 18, 1951, Donald O'Connor walked onto stage 15 at MGM. He had no idea that it would be the worst day of his career. Gene Kelly asked him to film the whole Make Them Laugh act in one day. That meant hours of dancing tricks and falls on flat concrete. There was no padding or noise absorption on the floor. It was just hard. When the movie was being made, O'Connor smoked 4 packs a day. Even though he was only 26, his body was already in bad shape. Gene Kelly didn't even make the dance moves for this one. He threw O'Connor into a room full of props while 2 helpers watched. They wrote down every funny move they saw. O'Connor didn't know how to do acrobatics. That's what he did. This routine got even harder because of that. He had to keep going past what he thought he could do. Kelly kept asking for more takes, and O'Connor kept going to try to impress the OCD person who wouldn't let him stop. It was hard to do the backflip off the wall. He had to use a special slanted wall and get new lessons from his world-class acrobat brother Jack, but it still hurt. It hurts everyone. His feet were hurt all over. His feet hurt, and all the crew gave him were small rugs to put on them. He begged for help. They gave him things to decorate. He fell to the floor over and over. 13 different front pratfalls. He said at one point that the way things were going, he felt like he'd have to kill himself to finish the number. There was darkness behind the scenes. Whenever something went wrong, Kelly loudly put the blame on O'Connor. O'Connor took the heat, even when Kelly was to blame. Kelly made fun of him in front of the crew. He hit O'Connor while he was mad. He knew he couldn't hurt 19-year-old Debbie Reynolds with his anger. O'Connor took it all in. The pain in the body, the abuse of feelings, and the stress of having to be perfect. The shoot was finally over. He went home on May 1st and passed out. For 3 days he couldn't move. Every part of his body screamed. He went back to the studio on May 5th. He was just being himself when Gene Kelly walked up to him and asked, "Do you think you could do that number again?" He thought it was a joke. "Yes," he said. "At any time. It wasn't a game. There was a mistake by the photographer. It was wrong to set the aperture on the camera. Every picture was too bright." His pain hadn't even been shown on film. Before the reshoot, Gene Kelly gave him 1 day to get better. The second shoot began on May 7th. The show's doctor told them not to do it. His muscles were hurt. His body wasn't ready. However, delays cost MGM $37,000 every day. Kelly did not want to wait. They instead smeared him with butter. The cast and crew brought gifts. People told him it was the most beautiful dance ever caught on film. A $5,000 bonus was given by Louis B. Mayer himself when he called. "Yes," O'Connor said. He limped through the takes. Between shots he put ice packs on his body. He tried not to hit the people with the worst bruises, but he did it anyway. Some people said it was even better the second time. He was taken to the hospital right away the next day. May 8th. Reports are different. Some say he stayed in St. John's for 3 days. Some say Cedars of Lebanon for a whole week. In any case, he was badly hurt, with stretched muscles and 2 broken ribs. 40% of his body was hurt. He would never be able to bend one knee 15% again. In another interview, he still made fun of it. He laughed. He thought the second take was better. Debbie Reynolds got the biggest part of her life when she was 19 years old, in 1951. She was chosen to be in the huge MGM show Singin' in the Rain. Gene Kelly, her co-star who was 39 years old, didn't want her though. She was new to dancing and didn't have any official training. Kelly said he was mad the first time they met. He is a trained ballet dancer. He gave her a cold look and asked, "What have you done before?" Debbie had 3 months to get ready. Donald O'Connor, who had been dancing on camera since he was 12, was one of the professionals she was with. Debbie was not only behind, she was also falling behind. She worked out with 3 dance teachers for 8 hours a day. It was terrible. She got so mad one day that she threw her tap shoes at a mirror and broke it. It got worse because of Gene Kelly. He told her over and over to smile more. She did it even though her face hurt. Afterward, she told me that Gene would yell at me if I wasn't happy. My cheeks were so dry they hurt. She once hid under a piano and cried because things got so bad. Fred Astaire found her there. Arista was around 50 years old, he was a legend, and he kept his practices very secret. But he did something very strange when he saw Debbie crying. He asked her to come watch him practice. He danced so long that she got red in the face. Afterward he told her, "Even the greats find it hard to be truly excellent. But you must never give up." That moment gave her the strength to keep going, but not all of them were so good. She did something wrong during a kiss scene. It started out as a quick rushed movie kiss, but it turned into something else. Debbie wrote in her autobiography that he grabbed her hard and stuck his tongue down her throat. She screamed. She was pulled away and ran around the set, pleading for a Coke to wash her mouth. She was only 19 years old. Kelly was 39 years old. She had never even had a French kiss. She was ashamed and violated. Kelly was still being mean after that. The famous Good Morning dance scene may look happy, but it was really very painful. At 8 a.m. they began filming. They kept going until 11 p.m. 15 hours of moving non-stop. Debbie's feet were bleeding through her shoes by the end. Kelly's just told her to clean it up when she showed them to him. She was stuck on set and couldn't even leave. Helpers carried her to her changing room. The doctors told me to stay in bed for 2 days. Kelly used the very first take in the end. Debbie never forgot how hard it was, but she kept going. She said Kelly never once cheered her on and only ever criticized her. She cried in between takes. After many years, Kelly realized that she wasn't nice to Debbie. She talks to me even though she killed him. His wife tried to protect him by saying he was only trying to make her look good. After a while, Debbie told me that he had to be tough on me. That's the only way I could have learned that much so quickly. Still, she remembers that most of the time she was crying. But Debbie wasn't the only one who gave up under the stress. Don O'Connor, Kelly's other co-star, also paid a high price. He was 18 years old when he was drafted into the war. So he was used to working non-stop. He kept up that pace. It got worse after Singing in the Rain in terms of stress and pain. He drank to deal with things. Then in the 1970s he did something risky. Before going on stage he started taking nitroglycerin pills to keep his energy up. These pills were made for people with heart problems. He wasn't sick, he just wanted to feel young again. It worked for a while. But everything fell apart on August 17, 1971. He had a heart attack. O'Connor stopped taking the pills, but she didn't deal with the real problem. His drinking got worse, and his work slowed down. Instead of movie stars, he did guest roles on TV shows. His character on Police Story was a drug user, and he was also a drug addict himself. In the end he said, "I'd have 1 or 2 bottles instead of 1 or 2 drinks when I get home." It made his marriage fall apart. Grace, his wife, left him in 1978. In the same year he passed out from drinking too much. Doctors found that he couldn't move from the waist down. He wasn't able to dance. He was so weak he couldn't stand. His body had given up for good. At first O'Connor didn't think much of rehab. He had faked it before, but something was different this time. He was in the hospital for 3 months. He wrote to his daughter about the patients around him at that time. One was a man who was 30 years old and couldn't move. One was a drug user who was 13 years old. He wrote in one letter, "I hope you can forgive me." This time recovery stuck. Physiotherapy helped him learn how to walk again. He also didn't drink or do drugs. His loved ones thought it was a miracle. His wife Gloria told him that getting sober was a gift from God. He agreed with his son Fred, who said that a greater power healed him. She went back on stage in 1979. It wasn't great. He messed up his first show and had to stop in the middle of a song, but the crowd still cheered for him. He didn't stop. He was up for an Emmy in 1980 for a dance salute at the Oscars. He danced like he did in the old days while riding a camera crane, but this time he wasn't on any pills. He didn't drink or do drugs until he died in 2003. He did shows, kept himself clean, and was thankful for the last 25 years of his life. His fall did not end his life. It kept it safe.